Hey guys, welcome back. Today we got a pretty special video because we have the Creality Ender-3 in its latest version, which is the S1 Pro. So the Ender-3 has evolved a lot since its first launch, and I've been a huge fan of it ever since, as it's been one of the best budget printers to own. So I'm super excited to see what the S1 Pro has to offer. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get started. Alright guys, so yeah, very excited for this printer and can't wait to check it out. So this is the box that it comes in. You can see a picture here of what it looks like. The dimensions of the box in centimeters, 51 by 51 by 30.5. And the shipping label says 20 pounds. Alright, so let's go ahead and open it up. And this is what we see inside. So we got a piece of paper here that's actually like a material guide, and it gives you recommendations for each type of filament with all the parameters that are recommended to print it. So yeah, quite cool and unique here. And also on the back of it we got some leveling tips, and this paper is actually really high quality, thicker kind of paper. So all right, so let's go ahead and pull the top off. We got dark black soft foam, and this is what we see on top. Yeah, there looks like to be a few pieces here and there, so there might be some assembly required. All right, so we'll start with the screen here. So this is a 4.3 inch touchscreen display. It's got a bracket here on the back. That's where we're gonna plug it in. And yeah, it's kind of like in its own little housing. Pretty cool looking design. Piece of our spool holder, and this one actually clips on the top, and we got the filament detector already connected to it. Brass inserts so it doesn't wear out. And actually we got the other piece here which will hold the spool, and I don't know if you guys can see, but it actually has a bearing on it, or the middle part there turns. So yeah, that's a really nice detail. And this simply will install here on this side of where the filament detector is. Alright, so here we have something really interesting, which is our direct drive extruder / hot end assembly. And this is what makes the Pro pretty special, as it is a high temperature hot end, giving you the ability to print up to 300 C. So the thing that really stands out right away is how everything is metal, or there's a lot of metal pieces, and just the attention to detail on this thing. It's a really beautiful piece. And so this fan here is the parts cooling fan that blows under the nozzle. And on the back of it, there's like a little circuit junction. And the way they integrated the heat break with the extruder, very interesting and quite unique looks like. This is where our filament will feed in. And this is actually the release arm for the extruder mechanism. And then our main cable will plug in up here. And also we have the CR touch here on the side for our probing and out of bed level. Yeah, very high-end looking piece here, and I'm expecting good results with this setup. All right, well, so far it's pretty exciting here. So we do have a bag full of tools and other things, and we'll take a closer look a little later. We also get a coil of filament. Not a big fan of these, but something to, get you started. It does look like it's PLA. We also get a spatula that is not sharpened, our power cord, and it's the US type. A bag here that looks like as our manual. We also get some Creality stickers, the warranty / after sales card, and a quick installation guide. It's kind of thick, but yeah, as expected here from Creality, very well laid out. Here's all of our parameters to the printer. I guess it is in a couple languages. This is why it's this thick. Actually, quite a few languages. And the first one is English, and it does show us here how to put it together. All right, so you guys probably can't see anything at this point. Let's go ahead and flip this to the side. So yeah, we got the gantry. which has dual Z-axis leads, and what's pretty awesome is it is tethered with the belt on top. So yeah, I'd love to see that. But the thing that sticks out the most here is this light bar that you guys see here on top. So we're gonna go in more detail a little later in the video. Let's go ahead and get our base out. And you guys can see that's everything for the box. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. And we'll bring our base back in. So it looks like they chose the path of completely molding a shell for the bottom here. And it is in a plastic, but it all looks pretty interesting. We even do have a little storage bin here. There's like a handle on the front to pull on the bed back and forth. And the bed is a steel sheet that's pretty thin with the PEI coating on it. So yeah, it looks like a pretty nice high quality sheet here, and it's got like a nice textured finish to it. And it is magnetic and holds very well, and there's a couple tabs. Very interesting. And we are going to go through the printer and look at all the details, but before we do anything else, let's go ahead and flip this upside down. So it does appear that we do have a back cover. There's some venting here and here. And maybe we can go ahead and take this back cover off and see what's underneath. So there appears to be a few little bolts. So let's grab our baggie of tools and we'll see what's in here. So we do get some snippers, and these are really useful as you can cut your filament on an angle. Some spare parts, looks like an end stop switch with a wire, a clean out needle to clean the nozzle if it gets clogged. We also get a spare nozzle, full-size SD card with a USB card reader. Here we have a bag of hardware, bolts, nuts to assemble the printer. For the last part here, we have some tools, which comprises of Allen wrenches, a couple open-ended wrenches, and a little flat screwdriver. So let's grab the Allen wrench we need, and we'll take out these little bolts. And I believe there's only 4 of them. All right, so let's see if this little cover here comes off. And sure enough, it does. And there is a fan connected to it. And what's interesting, guys, the cover itself is actually metal. I'm just gonna lay it back there. So yeah, there's only 4 little bolts that we have to take out, and this is what we see. So looking from above, everything looks laid out pretty well. So this space here is reserved for some storage, and it's actually very large, if you guys can see that. So yeah, it's quite a big storage. It's not very deep, but it is large, so fitting long items in there would be quite easy. So the whole frame is kind of plasticky, but then we have metal bracing on the inside, kind of like a skeleton. And then our large squishy rubber feet are stuck to each corner. So starting over here, we have the power switch, and then our power input, which comes here from the outlet and then goes into the power supply. And it is a Creality branded 350 watt, 24 volts. Everything looks nicely connected, crimped. And our voltage selection is on this side, which we'll be able to change it from here. So out of the power supply, we're gonna go to the main board, and you guys can see there's a few glued little brackets here that guide the wires, and here we have our main board. This is a Creality board. The stepper drivers are integrated. We got our full-size SD card slot over here and the 32-bit ARM processor right there, and the steppers are synced for cooling, and there is a large fan on the other side that blows on the main board. And what's interesting is I don't see anywhere on here the model number of the board. Actually, guys, looking at it a little closer, I did find the model number. I think it's right next to the Creality logo there in ultra tiny letters that says CR-FDM version V24S1-301 maybe. So yeah, something is there, but it's in tiny letters. But yeah, overall everything is pretty tight in here. We do allocate a lot of room for storage, and everything looks to be pretty high quality under here. Now the only thing that I noticed that's a little bit funny is this label here. So this is the manufacturing label, and they actually stuck it upside down, but I will try to peel it and see if I can flip it back around. All right, so I'm gonna put the cover back on, and we'll flip it around and start the assembly. All right, so let's go ahead and see what our first steps are here in the installation guide. So here we can see all the parts that are included. So we start with step 2, and that's going to be installing the direct drive hot end onto the cradle, and also installing some kind of wire clip. And then for step 3, we install the gantry. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and install the gantry first, because that will make it a lot easier to work with the upper portion. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna need the large bolts, and this is what they look like. We only need 4, but for some reason there's 6 in here. Grab the large Allen wrench, and you guys can probably see there's a slot here and then another one on the other side, and the gantry will literally sit right in there, and it kind of falls in. And so now we just need to lift up the printer a bit, and we'll bolt them into the gantry. And there are 2 on each side. So yeah, guys, this is pretty simple here. Not too complicated. So you don't want to tighten this yet. We're just gonna basically start them, and then we'll flip around and go to this side. And you guys probably noticed maybe that I did flip the sticker around, so it wasn't too hard. It just peeled off and stuck it back on. But yeah, you can start the bolts by hand. because they're long enough. And at this point, you're probably thinking, you know, we should completely tighten them, starting with this side, but not yet. And the reason for that, because, turn to the back here, what you want to do is bring the whole Z-axis down. The reason you want to do that is because you want the channels to be spread between themselves. So they were all the way up, but we need to bring them all the way down. It does appear that this might be in the way a bit here. So yeah, just go down as much as you can. And now we know the spacing between this channel and this channel is pretty close. And now we can go ahead and tighten those bolts underneath. And that should be good right there. All right, so let's return to step 1 and install the hot end assembly. And that's gonna go on this cradle right here. So let's go ahead and bring it back up a bit. And I'm just using the belt on the top to go up and down. And on the extruder assembly, we can see there's some holes here, and those are going to line up here with this bracket. And so it simply just sits right in there, kind of wiggles in there and falls right in. And maybe you guys can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 little bolts that we have to install. And that's these little guys here, which are the M3x6. And we'll grab the Allen wrench and start them on there. We can get a little different angle here. So you do have to kind of wiggle it around to find the threads. But overall, pretty straightforward process here. So you don't want to over tighten this because we do have 4 bolts. Just snug them up decently good. And that should be good right there. So yeah. Now there was also mention of a clip, and if we turn it around here, where our X-axis motor is here, there is a clip that's already installed on mine. So if yours isn't installed yet, this is where it goes. Just like that, and it's a clip to hold the wire in. All right, so for step 4, we're going to be installing the screen, and that goes on the right side of the printer here on the front. And it's quite simple. We got 1, 2, 3 holes here on the side, and they're going to line up with the screen. And you guys can see the screen can actually clip out, so let's go ahead and do that. So yeah, it is removable, and our bracket literally just lines up. The 3 bolts that we'll need are the M430. Maybe we'll turn it here for a better angle. So it literally just falls into place. But yeah, pretty straightforward. A little bit hard to get to as they're pretty deep in there. And we got one more up front. Tilting it up might help see it better. So we just need to snug these up. Don't need to be too tight as there are 3 of them. And simple as that, our display bracket is on. So since we're here, let's go ahead and plug the display in. And you guys can see there's like a little wire clip here that kind of tucks the wire away. And that helps it just from, you know, not hanging down too low. And then we can clip it in. So we're getting close to being finished, guys. So for step 6, we're just gonna install the spool holder, which goes on top. And then we just gotta plug everything in and we're done. So let's grab our spool holder, and we already installed the round part that connects together. So the way this installs is quite simple. It just literally hooks on to the channel on the top from the front like this, and then down. Just be careful for this little wire under there. And it should just clip in just like that. And then this little wire will hook up to our filament detector. And just like that. And on the detector, you guys can probably see there's an arrow that shows which way it goes, pointing down, which the filament flows like this down. So yeah, and you can move the spool back and forth somewhat. And I think it's a pretty good idea to kind of center it where it's a little bit to the side. Spool comes in at a center and then goes down and feeds. Bring this up a bit to the extruder here. So it'll have kind of like an even bend both ways. Yeah, very simple installation on the spool holder. One thing to note here, guys, is this light here almost looks like a handle, and I always want to grab it. But then I realized once I put my hand around it that it's too thin. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. If you move your printer a lot, you gotta be a little careful not to grab the light. But yeah, this is what it looks like here on the back. And the way I was moving the X-axis up and down, I was turning the belt here by hand. So if we come down, we can see that we got a few wires here that we need to plug in. And there's like a little distribution box here, or little plugs. So the Z-axis motor already has the extension wiring on it. So all we gotta do is just plug it in here. And it is labeled here what each plug does. And they're all different, so you can't mess it up. So each one plugs in its place. And if we go to this side of the printer, you guys can maybe see here, there's a Z-axis plug that's taped to the base. And that simply will plug in to the motor. And then we have our main wire here that comes out the bottom. And this is the wire that goes up and then to the hot end. So let's bring this down a little bit. And the bracket we talked about earlier that installs right here actually holds the flat part of it. But about midway here, we can see there's a couple more wires, and that's actually for the X motor and then the X pin stop switch, which are both over here. And also on the wire, we have a little sticker that shows us that this does slot into this bracket. So let's just go ahead and insert it here about where it needs to go. We can go ahead and connect everything here. which might be a little hard to see, but there's the motor plug, and then the end stop plug goes all the way over here. Now I think I'm gonna move this a little bit this way where it's more happy. Feels about right there. And if we flip around to the front, maybe a little more. Here on top of the hot end, we have the main plug that'll just plug in there, and it literally just clips on. Actually guys, over here, maybe you can see there's like another clip that the cable slots into, and it helps it kind of all sit nicely, and almost like a strain relief there. So yeah, definitely don't forget to put it in there. And also you want to check as you move it around that you have enough length to go from end to end, you know, without it stretching. So I am at the very end, and looks like we have enough here. So everything looks good. So yeah, that's pretty much how you install everything, which is not very hard at all, as you guys saw. And at this point, we're done assembling, but we need to check all of our rollers and belts. So the bed actually rolls on 4 rollers. There's 2 stationary and then 2 adjustable. And the adjustable ones are actually here where the screen is. So we should probably pop it off again, just to kind of get it out of the way. And you guys might be able to see those 2 right there. So they are kind of deep in there, but if you stick your hand in there, you can kind of feel the rollers and you can check the bed. So my bed is actually loose and it's kind of moving around. So the front roller is completely loose, it's not tight, and the back roller is actually perfect. So all I need to do is adjust the front one on here. So we're only going to work from this side because that's where our adjustable eccentric nuts are. So we're going to grab the double-ended wrench and we're going to try to reach it here and tighten it up a bit. Yeah, getting a little better. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it where it's slightly tight. Okay, so I can spin the roller. So the way I do it, guys, stick my hands in there and I try to spin the roller in one spot. If it spins, that means I'm loose enough. So both of them are able to spin, kind of like do a little burnout. So if you can do that, you're probably good. And if your bed's not wobbling, which mine is not anymore, this is exactly where you want it. So if the rollers are too tight or they're clamping too hard around the channel, they're going to wear out really fast. So you basically want them as loose as possible, but tight enough where it doesn't move around. And this is pretty much what we got here. And it should feel nice and smooth throughout the range. If you got any kind of steps or binds, you might want to check your rollers even better. And then also check your belt. The belt on mine is pretty tight actually. I think I want to loosen it a bit. And we got adjustability here on front with these knobs. And on the belts, you want them looser than tighter, but obviously not too loose where they're, you know, have slop in them. So yeah, that looks pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and clip our screen back on. And if we flip around to the back, maybe you guys can see there's a cutout here where you can see the belt running on the gear. So, but if it looks pretty good and you're not binding and everything's smooth, then you should be good. And mine feels great right now. All right, let's move to the hot end assembly here, and we're gonna do the same thing. So on the top, we got 2 stationaries and 1 adjustable on the bottom. And what you wanna do is just kind of roll around and see what it feels like. I do feel something a little bit, so I can spin the wheels, but they're kind of tight. So I think we need to loosen it a bit. So we got the eccentric nut on the bottom there. We're just gonna back off just a little bit to loosen it up. Okay, so right now I'm too loose, it's moving around, so I'm gonna tighten it back up a bit. Just enough when it starts to reasonably grab. And you want the x-axis a little tighter than usual because, you know, we have a direct drive extruder with the stepper motor and everything on there, so it's, you know, a little bit heavier than usual, so you don't want to leave it too loose, but also not too tight, and you'll be able to feel it on the channel. So I loosened it up and it feels perfect now. And for the last adjustment, usually doesn't really need to be done at all, is these rollers here on the outside. So there's 3 here and 3 on that side. The adjustable ones are on the inside. And so these you just want to make sure they're pretty good. So mine are all very decent. They actually all spin surprisingly. So unless you're ultra bind and like completely smashed over tightened, you don't really want to mess with this. As long as it's close, it should be just fine. And because we do have dual Z-axis motors and they are tethered, as long as everything is decently close, it will move nice and smooth up together. But yeah, that's pretty much it for adjusting and checking everything, except for I just remembered we didn't check this belt here. So our tensioner is on this side. Yeah, I think mine was a little too tight again, so I'm going to loosen it a bit, and actually that feels pretty good. So yeah guys, we're pretty much done with this part. I am pretty excited to power this thing up, but before we do that, let's check out all the details of this printer. So we'll start here on the top. We got the spool holder, and you guys saw how easy it clips in and out. Very simple, and you can move it on the channel back and forth depending on, you know, where you want to set it up. I recommend putting it on center. Filament detector, it does move around. So the filament will come from here down into the detector, then from the detector into the extruder. So we also get this really cool looking light. Here it says do not press, and you can actually pull this off. Not pulling so nicely. I think I'm just gonna leave it. It is pretty fragile as it is just a piece of plastic. And there's a power switch here on the side that turns it on and off. So we do have these nice smooth channels all around, even on the x-axis. Flipping the printer around, you guys can see we have supports for the lead screw, but also gears for the belt, which tethers the two leads together. And there are bearings inside there. So this part is all plastic. And then we got the metal gears with the leads. All these brackets are metal. Here on the other side, we can see how the wire clips are x-axis motor. And then the housing that has the gear. And underneath is where we plug in the end-stop switch. Going down, we have the motor with the couplers on both sides. This is our junction box, which plugs in the Z motor, the power for the light up there, and the filament detector wire. And these wires travel up the channel and come out here. Here we have the manufacturing label that we flipped around. The on and off switch, I like how large it is. Very nice. Power input socket, it is fused. And then going to the middle here, we have the voltage selection. And this is also a sticker that we need to peel. And I have a feeling it's not gonna peel. Yeah, that's really hard to peel. All right, there we go. And you guys probably can't see, but we are set on 230 and it's kind of deep in there and dark. And I'm gonna go ahead and switch it to 115. So make sure you check that and set it to the correct voltage, or you could have problems with the printer. So yeah, in the back it's pretty clean, nothing too much going on. We got a wire coming out here to the bed, and this is our y-axis motor end stop switch. You can see it up here. And our belt that runs inside. So here we have our aluminum heated bed, large knobs to adjust the level, high quality springs. And if you guys look underneath, we are insulated also. So that should give us a great heat up time. And on this side, you guys can see we are super strain relieved with this pretty large connection here to the bed. So that's very nice to see. Flipping back around to the front, let's go ahead and take a closer look at our hot end. So this is a really nice looking piece. So this is where our filament will feed in. We can see we got some kind of like brass bushing in there. This is our release arm for the extruder. So everything is metal here. There's a gear here that kind of pokes out, and that looks like it's ran by this motor which runs the extruder, and that'll probably be a good indicator to see if, you know, the extruder's moving. On the motor itself, we got Ender branding there. Very nice. To this side, we can see where we installed the bolts that hold it all together. We got the parts cooling fan here with a metal shroud around it. On this side, we have the CR Touch connected here and our cooling fan behind this shroud here. And then we can see some wires peeking out there. So looking here on the bottom, kind of see what our fan looks like there. And there's a duct that comes out and blows underneath. You can see the heat block that has a silicone sock and the tip of our nozzle. And if we go this way, you guys can see we have our x-axis end-stop switch here. And this is all completely covered, so you can't see anything inside of it. And on the other side here, we have the belt tensioner for the X and also a cover that covers everything up. So going down from the hot end, we have the build plate. And this is a PEI finish on a very thin steel plate. So I really like these. They're really nice and easy to use. Things stick really good, and this PEI material is really tough and long lasting. And you guys can see we have two tabs there on each side to pull it off. And it's literally just a steel thin sheet. And underneath that, we have a magnetic mat that this magnetizes to, and it's not too hard to line up, and it sticks really good. So on the bed, we have this handle that's connected to it that you can pull and push on, I guess, to move the bed back and forth instead of grabbing it like this or pushing it when it's hot. So that's a pretty nice detail. And below that, we got the Y channel that the bed rolls on with our belt and adjustment here for the tightness. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and check your bolts everywhere around the printer and see if they're tight, including here on top, as over time, even sometimes at the manufacturer, they don't tighten them completely, and so they might need to be snugged up a bit. So going to the very front, on the left side, we have our full size SD card slot and a USB Type-C port, which is used to connect to the computer. We got this nice look here on the sides, and this is one all large injected molded plastic. Our screen is actually more than 45 degrees leaning, so it's pretty flat down, so you can't see it really good from the top. And probably one of the coolest parts, a really large storage box here on the front that could fit a lot of tools in there and whatnot else. So yeah, I really like that. So going on the left side, we got a pretty clean channel here, and on the right side we don't have too much here. And so the screen is a very nice large size. We do have a sticker here that reminds us that we need to check our voltage on the power supply, which we've done already, so make sure you do that. Let's go ahead and peel this protector. And this is how they all should be like. Very easy to peel. So the screen looks really nice. We do have some bezels here around, but overall it's a great size and should be quite easy to operate. And we do have 4 large rubber feet on each corner that help with noise and vibration. So yeah guys, overall pretty cool looking printer. Really impressed with the design. Absolutely love the hot end direct drive extruder assembly here, which looks like they put a lot of effort in. So I'm definitely looking forward to running that. And overall just a really nice solid printer. So for the next part, let's go ahead and plug it in, power it on, and level the bed. Alright, so I got it plugged in. Let's go ahead and hit the power switch, which is on this side here. Very conveniently placed. And it does turn on. And you guys probably not going to see the display at all, but it is powering up and it's booted up. And right away I can see the display is a very high resolution, so we're going to look at it closer here in a second. Let's go ahead and see if this light bar on top works. So I'm going to hit the power button here on the side. And look at that. Wow. It is quite bright, and the light is actually more of like a soft white, so more on the warm instead of the cool. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the screen, and you guys can see the resolution is really clean. So even when I'm looking at it close, I pretty much can't even tell the pixels. Yeah, really liking that. So on the top we have our nozzle and bed temperatures, the speed, and the z-axis offset, which is kind of interesting that this is the home and what it looks like. So the home looks like is also the printing page. So here we have the print button, and this is going to read the SD card, which we don't have plugged in yet. Then we have the ready button. So here we can move our axes and also home the printer. So let's go ahead and click on home, and it is moving home right now. And here you can choose the increments that it moves individually on each axis. And up here guys, we actually have sub menus. So this is axis move, and then in and out, which is the extruder. And then we have manual, which also has our preheats for PLA and ABS here, or you can manually enter it by typing it in. So let's go ahead and preheat it also. You guys can see change to 200 on the nozzle and 60 on the bed. And you also have fan control and cooling. In the settings, we have device, advanced, and about here. So under the device, we have PLA, ABS settings, where you can set the temperatures for that. We got the level button and a language. You guys can see all the different languages that are available. So here we have advanced settings and about. Let's click on about. So this is everything about the printer. We can see it's the S1 Pro firmware. There's actually our main board model number, and the print size is 220 squared on the bottom and 270 tall. And if we click on advanced settings, we have movement, restore all, and PIDs. So yeah, it's pretty basic here guys, and nicely laid out. Very clean UI. So we're gonna go to settings here and do our leveling. So under settings, we're gonna hit the level button, and that's gonna set us up for leveling the bed. And there's 2 stages to this. First, we manually level it, and then we're going to let the auto leveling probe do the job. And so to do the manual leveling, we'll have to click on AUX level on this side. So it's doing a probe right now in the center. And I lower you guys down so we can see a little better, but yeah, it's setting up for it. All right, so after clicking on AUX, and you guys won't see this at all, but there's 5 points that it gives us on the bed, and also a Z-axis offset. And so we're just simply gonna push on the points. So we'll start here with this corner, and you'll need some kind of paper. I'm just using a sticky note. And we'll start leveling the bed as you normally do manually. All right, move to the next one. And so the reason you want to do it manually is because if you let the out of bed leveling do everything and your bed is not level already, it's going to have to compensate so much. There's a good chance it won't work right if you don't manually flatten the bed first. And this is what we're doing here. So you want to go around at least 2 or 3 times and get it close. And also don't forget that you do need to be preheated so everything's expanded. So since this bed is not that large, it's actually quite easy to get it close quickly. And I'm pretty much there, but I'm gonna go ahead and just go around one more time to make sure, because I do want to be as close as possible. That way our out of bed leveling won't have to compensate so much. All right, that looks pretty good. And now we can go to the middle. So it doesn't really matter what the middle is. Yeah, on mine here is actually a little bit tighter. When it measures everything, it'll compensate for that. And you guys probably can't see this at all, but the auto leveling button is right here. So let's click it, push start, and there it goes. So it actually is taking 3 probes in one spot. And looks like it's gonna do a 4x4 most likely. Yep. And so that'll be 16 points on the bed that it will measure. I just realized, guys, that the The camera was a bit over focused to the front. Hopefully you can see it better now. Alright, and it looks like it is done with the auto leveling. Alright, so for the next part we need to set our offset. We'll click on AUX level again, and down here we're going to have our Z-axis offset setting right below the numbers. But first we want to click on number 1 to set us up. And we'll click it down since I'm too high. Alright, getting close. And there we go. So once it gets a little tight, just go up 1 from there. Well, depending on how thick your paper is. And that's it. So mine ended up being minus 1.20 millimeters for the offset. And simple as that, guys, we are done with out of bed leveling. So let's go ahead and home it. Alright, so now that everything's good to go, let's go ahead and load the filament. And I'm going to use this silky copper looking filament here. And we're going to put it on our spool holder. Wow, this thing's so nice because it has that bearing. And so it spins really easy. So from there, we're going to go through the detector. And it does have a little blue light there. And then we're going to go down into the extruder. On the extruder, we have this lever that we push just like that. And then we can feed the filament in, and we can go ahead and push it through until it comes out the other end. And you guys can see there as I push it down, we can purge it. And that's the best way to do it on a direct drive extruder like this, as it is pretty quick to just push it through yourself. Now you can go to the ready and click on in and out. We'll click on in, let's just say 15 millimeters, enter, and it'll push it through 15 millimeters. So yeah, either way, but it is short, and so it's quite easy just to do it yourself. So yeah, guys, we're pretty much ready to print. We've preheated, leveled the bed, set the Z-axis offset, put our filament in. So let's go ahead and grab our SD card that was included. And it is an 8 gig, and it should plug in right here. And it looks like it goes in upside down, yes. So we'll click on print, and you guys probably can't see this very well, but we do have a few files to print here. So we have a rabbit, cat, handle, and also some kind of Ender bit file. So let's go with the one on top, which is the rabbit. So we'll click on it, and I guess we need to push the play button here. Yep, sure enough, and it starts. And there it goes. So I'm gonna click on Z-axis offset here to compensate just in case we need to go up or down as it starts printing. And we can see our CR Touch doing its job. And there it goes. And yeah, right off the bat, the offset looks perfect. And you guys probably won't see practically anything because of this fan shroud here. Yeah, we'll probably have to go through the side to view it here. But yeah, looks like perfect as far as I can tell. Zoom you guys in here a bit. Kind of see the tip of the nozzle there, but yeah, looks like our offset was just right, and we go straight to printing. And this is one of those things that I love about Creality printers, is that as long as you set everything up pretty good, it usually works out great and just starts printing. So as far as the sound, it's actually pretty quiet. It's not completely dead silent. Like, you can hear the steppers working, they're just very muted, but I'm gonna bring my microphone in so you guys can hear it. But I do have to say, the fan noise is actually much quieter than most printers. So overall, I would say this printer is moderately quiet. So going back to the screen, you guys can see that it's pretty dim, and it does auto dim itself. So if you click on it, it goes to being bright. And I guess that's a good feature for preserving the screen life, but I wish there was a way to keep it on so you could see it all the time. So this is what we see when we're printing. We got a stop, pause down here, the progress, 11% done, and there's like a progress circle, and the amount of time passed since we started, which is 8 minutes now. The file name above that. And then on top here, we have the nozzle temperature and the target, the bed temperature target, the printing speed, and the Z-axis offset. So if we click on any of this, we'll have another menu that pops up where we can adjust the nozzle, bed, print speed, the fan, and the Z-axis offset, where you could do here. So if you need to go a little up or a little down when you first start printing, you can do that here. So yeah, very basic controls and very cleanly laid out, separated between each other. All right, so yeah, it looks like we're printing away pretty quickly actually. And it won't probably take too long to print this print, as it is boogieing along. So we'll print this and maybe another file and see what they look like. Alright, so we got the rabbit and the cat printed out. The printer did well. Seems to print great with no issues. So let's go ahead and take a closer look of what we got here. So we'll start with the little rabbit. So you guys can see the layers went down really nicely. So this filament is silky, but it's kind of really cheap, so you might see a little bit of discoloring and stuff like that, but overall great layer adhesion. You can kind of see some lines. There is a little bit of layering down here, but very small, and overall really nice print. You can really tell the accuracy of this printer and how well it puts the layers down. There is a little bit of stringing between the ears, so not sure what the retraction's set at. And we also have a little bit of overhang or something going on here. Yeah, other than that, everything looks great and pretty good print overall, I would say. So we also printed out the cat, and he's still stuck to the build platform. Let's see how easy it pops off. And look at that, pretty easy. And this seems to work really good, this PEI sheet. Now on the cat, we did have a little bit of an issue. One of our supports broke loose, and I think we were a little bit far from the build plate. So as it was printing, I did offset the Z a little bit lower, but that was pretty much at the end of the start there. So go ahead and get these supports off and look at this little cat. So yeah, again, overall, very nice layer adhesion. The layers seem to go down very evenly. We do have a little bit of unevenness here and there, and plus we didn't slice these prints, so I have no idea of the parameters on them, but overall not too bad, and a really good start here for the S1 Pro. Now I know this printer should produce even better results, so let's go ahead and jump to the computer and we'll set up the slicer and slice our own prints. Alright, so I got the SD card plugged in. Let's go ahead and open it up, and this is what we see. First thing here, we got the 3D printing manual in all these different languages. And I guess I opened a Chinese version, but yeah, you get a full copy of the manual in digital form. Second folder we got here is the slicer and drivers, and we also have a PDF here that basically goes through how to install and use the software. So this could be helpful if you choose to use the Creality slicer. I'm actually going to use Cura, so we'll set that up here shortly. And the last one here is you got a couple of videos of the leveling procedure and just how to get started. So yeah, if you want to watch those, that could be helpful. So the rest of the files are the 4 G codes that we saw. We also get this material list here in PDF form, which as you guys can see could be very helpful, especially when you're first getting started. And then we get the 4 STL files to the 4 included prints that we can print. So one of them is actually also a handle if you want to print it so you can install it, and actually there are a couple bolts and T-nuts that were included with this printer that you can mount the handle with. But yeah, they give you the STLs that we printed. So since we're using Cura, let's go ahead and open it up. So I'm going to click over here, add a printer, go to non-network printers, we'll find Creality, and then we'll choose the Ender-3 Pro here as our base. So here we can rename it. So let's add S1. I'm just going to get rid of the Creality and just call it Ender-3 S1 Pro. Add. So here we're going to do the machine settings. It is 220 by 220 and 270 tall. I believe that's correct. And that's all we really need to do here, except for under the start G code where it says G28, we're going to add G29. And that's because of the CR touch. And we should be good to go. So let's click on next. And here we can see our build volume. So let's go ahead and throw in a calibration cube. I'll push it back just a little. And if you guys saw that, I just clicked on it. And when you do that, you can actually just move it around. Or you got some hot buttons here on the side where you can move it, scale it, and rotate it. But we're not going to go too much into all the details. But one thing that's quite important is over here, if we click on our print settings, and if you see these little dots here, if you click on that, you want to be on advanced. And let's go ahead and go through all this and change a few things. So we're going to print at 0.2 layer height, and everything looks good here. Wall line count, we need to change to 3, as the walls will look better. Top layers, I like to change to 5. Fill gaps between walls, I want to go nowhere for now. But if you want the best finish, you probably want to keep it to everywhere. Infill is good. We'll keep the temperature at 200, except for the first layer. Maybe we'll go a little hotter, 205. And also on the build plate, we'll go 65 initial layer. Here you can adjust the print speed. I like to print everything at 50. Initial layer, I'll turn this down to 15. And the skirt or brim, we'll do 25. So under travel, we have retractions, which should be on, and it's at 6.5, and we're going to change that to 4, and you can go up or down from here depending on how much stringing you'll have and whatnot else, but about 3 to 4 millimeters is a good start depending on the setup and the filament, things like that. Retraction speed should be around 40 or so millimeters a second, maybe even 45, so this also can be adjusted. But if we look at the materials guide, we can see they recommend 40 for all of them, so I guess we'll go ahead and set that to 40. And I'm actually really surprised at their retraction distance of 0.8 millimeters, which in my experience never works out. And that probably explains why their test models are so stringy. In any case, guys, for cooling, we got it on here. Leave everything as it is. You can generate supports if you have overhangs by checking this box. And then you get a lot more options to do that. And then our build adhesion is skirt, which what I like to use, and 3 lines around the print, and then it starts printing. In the special modes, we also have spiralized, which we will try out. Basically prints a few layers on the bottom and then 1 layer all around. So we'll print like a spaceship or a vase or something to see how that prints. But yeah, pretty much that's all of the settings that I normally use, and obviously you can adjust all this to your liking and to your printer. But yeah, that's pretty much the basics. So if we click the slice button here, we can see it's going to take 45 minutes to do this cube. So let's go ahead and save it to the removable. And we're going to right click or double click and clear the build plate. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a benchy in here. And we'll also push it back a little bit. Slice it the same way. And the benchy is going to be 1 hour and 55 minutes. And we'll go ahead and save that. So now we can eject the card straight from here. So I'm going to go ahead and print these out, and hopefully this was helpful. Alright, so we got the calibration cube and benchy printed out. They both turned out pretty good. I do have to mention though, my filament is kind of old. I have been using it for over a year. It's at the end of its spool life and it's starting to print a little funny here and there. And I just wanted to mention that because I know the prints can look better. In any case, let's look at the calibration cube first. So here we have the X. And you guys can see the layers went down really nice. It's really smooth, very minimal vibration, and practically no ghosting. We got the Y. A little more vibrations and a tiny bit of ghosting. Not terrible though. Now we might need to loosen up this Y belt. It does seem a little tight still, and we can do that on the fly here. So try doing that to see if you can get a better print quality. We got the X wall and the Y wall. So yeah, everything looks really good. The bottom has this pattern here from the bed, which looks pretty nice, and this is our top. So yeah, excellent print as expected from Creality. Let's check out the benchy here. So the bottom. And by the way, the bed has been sticking very well. What's interesting is when it's hot, it sticks great. And then when it cools off, the models just literally pop off. So yeah, so far, great experience with the bed. Let's look at the walls here on the benchy. So very smooth, clean, even layering. A little bit of ringing right here or ghosting, but barely anything. This is our Z seam here. So overall, you guys can see really accurate and spot on. The walls look pretty good. We did have a little bit of stringing. You guys can see that. I'm pretty sure that's because of my filament. But yeah, everything looks really good. The box with the slit and the top. So yeah. Overall, great print quality, honestly to be expected with this printer. So at this point, you guys can tell the printer's very capable, but we're gonna go ahead and print out a few more models and we'll take a closer look at those. And also at the end, my final thoughts on this printer. Alright, so these are all the prints that we printed with the S1 Pro. I have to say, pretty impressed with this machine overall for what it is and what it has to offer. I think it's a very interesting proposition from Creality. So if you're a huge Ender fan, you're going to love this printer, as it kind of takes the best of Ender-3 and puts it all in here. So we've seen the initial prints we printed, the benchy, the cube. So I also did specialty filaments like TPU, you see in yellow, and then a couple PETGs, and also ABS, which I was really impressed with. So the first thing I want to show you is this other benchy I printed. So this is in PLA, brand new filament out of the box, 1mm retraction. So, and you guys can see when everything is right, the print turns out beautiful. And even though our original benchy was pretty good, this one is much better. And I think having the right filament is everything when it comes to great prints, as you guys can see in this benchy here. So yeah, and the sheet they give you for the parameters for every kind of filament actually is quite good and accurate, and overall is a great guide. So here we have a tree frog, and this print is pretty detailed. And by the way, everything was printed in 0.2 layer height at 50mm a second. And you guys can see it turned out really good overall. We do have some stringing though. And again, this is at 1mm retraction. So certain filaments just don't retract good enough. But yeah, guys, the overhang here on the front is perfect. And the accuracy overall and how the layers sit is very nice. So here we have a gear, and I got it printed in this black PLA. Unfortunately, there was a lot of stringing on this one, and you guys maybe can see all between the gears there. And I believe this one was set at 4mm retraction and still didn't do good. So yeah, some filaments do great and others not so well. But I'm almost wondering if I would have redone this print in 1mm retraction if we had maybe a little better results. But in any case, I will have to use this wrench here, and we're going to see if we can break these gears so they will turn. So since we have a lot of stringing, this might be a little bit messy, but well, you know, overall it did go. It is a little tough to spin because of all that stringing inside, but yeah, as far as I can tell, it's really smooth the way it spins, so it's very even. So that tells me it's very accurate. And if it wasn't for all that stringing, we probably would have had a perfect gear here. So overall, very impressive and shows that the printer is very capable. And our last print here in PLA is the shark. It prints in these multi pieces and then kind of combines and they're linked together. And this shows, for one, that the bed, you know, has to hold all these pieces and then they combine. So pretty impressed with the build plate overall. Very nice and easy to use. But yeah, if we look up close, guys, you can see everything looks awesome, and all the layers are very accurate and very well laid down. So now the shark does have a functional mouth. Let's go ahead and see if we can break it loose here. So far it doesn't want to. Well, actually, there it goes. So sometimes actually these teeth don't print right, but on this printer they actually print perfect and the mouth works beautifully. So yeah, very nice results here, and this printer doesn't disappoint. Alright, so for the next part, let's look at the TPU prints. I actually have a couple, which we have this benchy here. And as you guys know, benchy is quite a complicated print, and you guys can see the TPU did great in being laid down by this printer. Now we did have a little bit of something funny here, and I believe that maybe the fan at 100% was a little too much for this TPU. I probably should have turned it down to maybe 70 or even 50% to get a little better result. But yeah, other than that, you guys can see the layers went down beautifully and it just looks great. I'll try to bend it, but yeah, you can see it is TPU, so you can actually twist the top here. In any case, yeah, it did great. And all I did is just turn down the speed on the other benchies I printed to 50%. And this is what we got. Now I got a little curious after that and printed the spaceship also in TPU, but it's in spiralized mode. So it's just a few layers on the bottom and then one layer all around. So it is hollow pretty much. You guys can see it's pretty incredible that, you know, we can spiralize mode TPU and get this really flexible little toy, and I can fold it up in many pieces and it'll unfold back into the spaceship. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool how well TPU can be usable with spiralized mode and actually make pretty interesting models that are very flexible and, you know, not breakable. So at the bottom is really good, surprisingly. Like, it won't rip or tear. So, I mean, obviously, if I do it hard enough, I probably will rip it, but it's much more durable than I ever thought it would be. Now, that said, there is an issue with this printer in spiralized mode, and you probably won't be able to see it on this print. You got to look really carefully. There is some weirdness going on in spiralized mode because of the way the printer processes the file, and we'll talk about that once we get to this larger spaceship. But yeah, TPU, very easy for this printer, and turns out great, as you guys can see here. So the next filament I wanted to try was PETG, which was pretty good. Now, I don't have much PETG, so whatever filament I have is what I used, and it is pretty stringy, but still, it did turn out pretty well. So PETG is printed a little bit hotter at 220, 30, and overall it's great, but we do have quite a bit of stringy here and there. It did print out the model and nothing failed, and it is very durable because it is PETG, so no issues whatsoever doing that. Now, I did print this handle also that actually came with the printer, the file did, and I guess this is a handle that you can mount on the top of the printer, but there's no room up there because we have the spool holder, which is kind of interesting that they even included. But this handle actually would work very good for like a Ender-3 version 2 printer, and this is also in the same filament, PETG. It did turn out really nice. There was a little bit of blobs here and there, but they just pop right off when you scrub them. So yeah, overall great results, and I really like the finish on it from the bed. Got like a little textured kind of look. So now there are supports that we need to pull off. Let's go ahead and try that here real quick. And you guys can see that broke off perfectly. Same thing on this side. And yeah, being in PETG, this is a very functional print that is durable. And if you guys remember, they did include the hardware to mount this handle. So we get a couple bolts with T-nuts, and the bolts will go through the handle in the hole, and then the T-nut on the other end, just like that. And same way for the other side. And now we can install this handle on the channel and then tighten it up with these T-nuts, and then you'll have a handle for the printer to move it around. Now, for this printer, as you guys can see, there's not much room here for it. I'm not sure exactly why they would include this when it's technically not even mountable, unless maybe I'm just not understanding where it could go. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and use this handle for my other printer, which is the Ender-3 version 2, and it'll perfectly fit there. And so yeah, you can print out this little handle and you have the hardware to actually use it. So the next prints I'm excited to show you guys is these wheels here, and this was actually printed in ABS, and I was a little reluctant to try this because normally ABS really warps and it's hard to print anything, but it really turned out great with these wheels. On this one here, I haven't cleaned it up, but I did use brim kind of make a little more surface area, and we heated up the bed to 90 degrees, and I think I printed about 260 or 270 on the nozzle, and the PEI really held the ABS no problem whatsoever. So here we have a wheel that's all cleaned up, and there was supports going up like that. So yeah, everything turned out really good. And this is like a little wheel for an RC car that we're going to actually use, and this is great because I can just print these out as we need them. Because this is an ABS, it's going to be more durable, and plus gives us a different kind of option to use. Yeah, was really impressed with ABS printing on this printer, even though we had to really heat it up. And as you guys probably know, with ABS, you do have to have some kind of enclosure so you can keep the heat in. So maybe for smaller items like these wheels, looks like it's very capable and quite easy to do. All right, and so for our last print, we have this spaceship, which is in spiralized mode, but there is an issue, and it really started showing itself up higher here. So I haven't removed it from the bed yet. It's actually stuck on there. Let's see how easy it comes off. It should be really easy. Okay, so it's actually stuck on pretty well, but it is coming off. There we go. Yeah, and this PEI has been great and just popping off. So all right, so our whole top is crumbling away. I guess we can go straight to the top here so you guys can see what our issue is, and you guys can see that it's under extruding and just terrible pausing. So what was happening is, because it's one layer all the way up, the printer has to remember each time it goes up where it was last for the recovery. And so because the power loss recovery is active, it's trying to constantly, as the z-axis is going up, to remember that position, and eventually it just gets full and starts getting stuck and gets laggy. And so in this printer, instead of stopping the nozzle and leaving little blobs as it stops and just thinks, it was stopping the extruder up here higher, and so the extruder just wasn't extruding consistently, giving us this really bad finish here. So but yeah, if we look at the bottom, it looks great, and actually the walls turned out pretty good too. There looks to be no issues here, which is interesting. So as I guess the buffer filled up, it got bad up here. Everything below that, you guys can see a really nice finish. Very accurate. Not much ghosting or ringing. So yeah, but out of the box, this printer is not great for spiralized mode because it does have trouble. But there are ways to mitigate that. So if that is important to you, you might want to look into to have the recovery mode turned off in the slicer. But yeah, guys, overall, I'm really impressed with this printer. It does have a lot to offer. Everything is well thought through, and you really do get a high quality machine. Starting here with the direct drive extruder and the high temp of 300C hot end setup. Cable management is very nice. This LED light up here is quite useful. We got filament detection, dual Z axes, reasonable build volume, 220 by 220 by 270. Very nice PEI build plate. Great resolution screen. Love the huge storage here up front where you can keep all your stuff. Adjustable belt tensioners on X and Y, full size SD card, and not to mention the automatic bed leveling with the CR touch, which makes this very flawless and easy to keep it leveled. So yeah, if you are an Ender-3 fan, this is very nice and nostalgic somewhat, and you know, kind of like to the max of what you get with Ender. And even though it's not cheap, you really do get quality components on this printer. Personally, I think the Ender-3 version 2 is still a better value, obviously, but if you want the best that Ender has to offer, then the S1 Pro here would be definitely it. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, then hit that like button. If you do want to pick up this printer, I'll have some links in the description. Check it out. Also check out my other videos like the Ender-3 version 2. And I have a lot of other 3D printing videos in the playlist. So I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. And if you made it to the end, thumbs up to you. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.